This is Theology Bits, a ministry of Central Lutheran Church, Eugene, Oregon. I'm Pastor Ben. This week, we continue and in fact conclude this video series with the 6th installment of the stories of creation in the Bible. We've not covered everything, but we're covering some different representative ideas. And today we're looking at Psalm 148. Now this psalm, we've looked at several psalms that tell a story of creation, and this one does something very interesting. It ties praise or worship to creation. And this is a different focus on creation than we've had. Genesis 1 and 2 direct how the world was created and the role of humans in the world. We've had other focuses of how the creation provides for wisdom, the expansiveness of creation. But this is different, how the creation is related to worship. And so we're going to be looking at in detail of what this depicts. So it starts with a quick run through here of cast of characters. Who is doing this worshiping? Who worships God? It's a charge, praise to, as a command that these different people ought to be, or these different characters ought to be worshiping. And who are these worshipers? Well, we have the heavens. You have the heights. You have the angels and the hosts. I'm going to switch to a different color here. You have the sun, the moon, the stars. You have the waters above. You have the sea monsters. And the deep. Remember, these are all calling all of these to worship. Fire, hail, snow, frost, wind. All of these called to worship. The mountains, and the hills, the trees, the wild and the tame animals. I'll switch to a new color here to express. Then it finally moves to people, to kings and rulers, to both young and old, all people. And so we have quite a list here. All of these who are calling out and praising God. And you see the focus in creation of just this list. But part of it is not just calling these characters to worship God, but also reminding these characters that God created these ones. That there is the strength of God for God's people. And so this creation is a reminder to people, remember this is where we're going, it's only two of the things, a reminder to people to praise God because God really can do something about their lives. That was kind of the focus in the last video. But here something different occurs in that how do these entities, aside from the people, how do these entities praise and worship God? What does worship look like for the sun, the moon, and the stars, or the waters above? Well, actually, it says for the sun, the moon, and the stars to follow their path in the firmament. What does that mean? Simply be the creation. See, we tend to think of worship as something special that we do separate from our regular day-to-day lives. It's something that we deliberately set aside. But here, this creation as worshiping, how do they worship? Well, they worship by being creation. They're not going to do something different than what they were created to do. They will do what they were created to do, and that's it. The sun, the moon, the stars will simply move in their rotations as they were directed. And there's something that is beyond this. It's the expansiveness of worship. The more we think of creation, the more we think of expansiveness. The wider we can think of it, the more it is accurate that this is God's creation. But worship, we don't tend to do that. Here, it's calling them to do that exactly. And it really gives even more emphasis where there's some shocking elements here on who should be worshiping. Did you notice this one? The sea monsters in the deep? Or the other hosts in heaven aside from the angels? What would these be more historically called? Maybe evil? Right? The realm of the death, the sea monster, the deep, the waters below, the chaos. Well, now what is that saying? Here's the expansiveness of creation. That even those things that seem evil are part of creation themselves, and they acting as they should in the system of the world is a form of worship. And so, what is it calling the people to be doing? The living of our lives are worship. That is worship. That is praising God, of saying, we have been put here for a purpose. We're going to live out that purpose. And hopefully we acknowledge that it's indeed God who put us here. But if we can't, the very living itself is a form of worship. Creation teaches humans to worship. Can we worship the way the trees and the mountains and the hills do? Can we see that we've been put here for a purpose and to live the purpose? This is a very different focus of how to theologically think about creation than what we've had thus far. There's a lot more we could talk about in the stories of creation. We have not talked about the New Testament, where there's various stories of creation, most notably, say, in John 1, or Colossians 1, or Colossians 4, no less. And there might be an opportunity for us to do that. But for now, the goal of this sequence, this 6-video sequence, was to show you that there are more creation stories in the Bible, and especially in the Hebrew Bible, than most people realize. Most people know Genesis 1 and 2, and that's about it. Here we've had 5 other ones, and this was not exhaustive. It instead was just trying to provide some examples. So I hope that this series will encourage you to look through the whole of the Bible and look at where are those creational elements and what theological idea is it trying to show. This has been Theology Bits. I'm Pastor Ben.